Have you ever loved two people so deeply you couldn't imagine they'd ever hurt you? My name is Sarah, and I'm 32 years old. If you had asked me 6 months ago to describe my life, I would have used words like stable, predictable, and happy. I'm a graphic designer, which means I love order. I love when things align perfectly, when colors complement each other, and when every element has its place. My husband, Mark, used to joke that I tried to organize the entire world into a neat grid. And he was right. I found comfort in certainty. Our life together was my masterpiece of certainty. We had been married for 5 years, living in a cozy 2-bedroom house in a quiet suburb of Chicago. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had 2 golden retrievers, a garden I was fiercely proud of, and a 5-year plan that was right on schedule. The next step, the one we were most excited about, was starting a family. Our world was small, simple, and meticulously cared for. It was everything I had ever wanted. Mark was the calm to my organized storm. He was a high school history teacher, a man of patience and quiet strength. Where I saw life in grids and pixels, he saw it in stories and sweeping arcs of time. He was the one who would pull me away from my laptop to dance in the kitchen, the one who would remind me that sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones that are a little messy. We were different, but we fit. We were a team. And then there was Chloe, my best friend since we were 5 years old, building forts out of couch cushions and promising to be each other's maids of honor. A promise we both kept. Chloe was vibrant, funny, and fiercely loyal. She became a cardiac nurse, a profession that perfectly matched her compassionate heart. She wasn't just my friend, she was the sister I never had. The 3 of us, me, Mark, and Chloe, were an inseparable unit. We had Sunday dinners together, went on summer camping trips, and knew each other's secrets. Or so I thought. The first crack in my perfectly ordered world was almost unnoticeable. It was a Tuesday night in April. Mark came home late from a faculty meeting, looking pale and exhausted. He barely touched the dinner I'd kept warm for him, and went to bed early, mumbling something about a headache. I brushed it off. A long day at work, it happens. But then it happened again and again. The late meetings became more frequent. He started losing weight, and dark circles formed under his kind eyes. When I'd ask if he was okay, he'd just smile a tired smile and say, "Just stressed. Hun, end of the school year is always crazy." I wanted to believe him. My nature, my love for order, compelled me to accept the simplest explanation. At the same time, Chloe started acting strange. She, who would normally text me dozens of times a day with silly memes and work gossip, became distant. Our calls felt rushed. When I suggested our usual Saturday morning coffee, she'd have an excuse. Sorry, I have to cover a shift. Or, I'm just so wiped, need a day to myself. It hurt, but I tried to be understanding. Her job was demanding. The real alarm bell, the one that I couldn't ignore, rang about a month into all of this. I was cleaning out Mark's car and found a crumpled receipt from a coffee shop called The Daily Grind. I didn't think anything of it until I saw the location. It was on the other side of town, right next to the hospital where Chloe worked. The timestamp was from 2:15 p.m. the previous day, a time Mark was supposedly in a parent-teacher conference at his school, miles away. My heart started to beat a little faster. It was probably nothing. A coincidence. Maybe he had a meeting near there, but my mind, the same one that loved to connect dots and form patterns, started to connect them in a way that made me feel sick to my stomach. The late nights, the exhaustion, Chloe's distance, them being in the same place at the same time, a place he had no reason to be. A question began to form in my mind, a cold, terrifying whisper that I couldn't shut out. It was a question that threatened to shatter the beautiful, predictable life I had so carefully built. What were my husband and my best friend hiding from me? The question haunted me. It followed me from room to room, a shadow in my own home, my internal world. Once so calm and structured, became a whirlwind of doubt and fear. I started watching them. I hated the person I was becoming. Suspicious, anxious, a detective in my own life. Every text Mark sent made my stomach clench. Every time Chloe's name came up, I would watch his face for a flicker of something. Guilt, nervousness, anything. The first and greatest battle I faced was the one happening inside my own head. One part of me, the part that loved them, insisted I was being ridiculous. Mark loved me. Chloe was my sister. They would never betray me. But the other part, the part fueled by the strange evidence and the cold knot of dread in my gut, told me not to be a fool. It whispered that I was ignoring the obvious, that the pattern was clear. At the same time, the real-world evidence started to accumulate, each new discovery feeling like another crack forming in the foundation of my life. I tried to talk to Mark, to gently probe. One evening, as we were washing dishes, I said, "You seem so far away lately. Mark, is everything really okay at school?" He didn't look at me, his eyes fixed on the plate in his hands. "Yeah, just the usual. Budgets, curriculum changes. You know how it is." His voice was flat, dismissive. He was building a wall between us, brick by brick. I tried with Chloe, too. I called her one afternoon. "Hey, I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. Everything okay with you?" Her voice on the other end was strained. "Oh, work is just a lot. I'm fine, Sar. Just tired." But there was a hesitation, a slight tremor in her voice that wasn't there before. The lies were clumsy, and that's what scared me the most. They had always been terrible liars. My simmering anxiety boiled over a week later. I was driving home from a client meeting and took a different route. As I stopped at a red light, I glanced at the car in the next lane, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Chloe's car, and Mark was in the passenger seat. They weren't laughing or talking. They were just sitting in silence, both staring straight ahead, and the look on Mark's face was one of pure devastation. Chloe had her hand on his arm, a gesture of comfort. The light turned green, and they drove off, never knowing I had seen them. I drove the rest of the way home in a daze. My mind raced, replaying that single image. The secrecy, the location, the shared look of despair. My brain, desperate for an explanation, could only land on one conclusion, the oldest and most painful story in the book, an affair. It was the only thing that made sense of the lies, the distance, the shared secret that was clearly tearing them apart. That night, I did something I never thought I would do. I waited until Mark was asleep, and I looked at his phone. My hands were shaking. I felt like a monster, a trespasser, but I had to know. I didn't find flirtatious texts or loving messages. What I found was a call log filled with calls to and from Chloe, often late at night, and a string of texts. "Are you okay?" she'd ask. "Don't forget to take it," she'd remind him. "I'll be there tomorrow," she promised. It was intimate, secretive, and utterly damning. My internal battle was over. The doubt was gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty that felt like glass shattering in my chest. My husband, the man I was planning to have children with, was cheating on me with my best friend, the woman I considered a sister. The world I had built wasn't just cracked, it was a pile of rubble at my feet. The next few days were a blur of silent agony. I went through the motions, working, cooking, walking the dogs, but inside, I was screaming. I was planning my confrontation, my grand, dramatic moment of truth. I wanted to hurt them the way they had hurt me. I wanted to see the guilt on their faces when they realized I knew. The moment my world completely fell apart came on a Saturday. Mark told me he was going to a hardware store. Chloe had told me she was working a double shift, but I knew they were lying. I had a feeling, a sick intuition that this was it. I got in my car, and I drove to the one place I could think of, the park near the hospital. And there they were. They were sitting on a secluded bench overlooking a small pond. I parked my car and watched them from a distance, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment I would catch them. But they weren't kissing. They weren't wrapped in a passionate embrace. Mark was hunched over, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. He was weeping. Chloe was sitting beside him, her arm around him, speaking to him in a low, soothing voice. She gently rubbed his back, offering a comfort that I, his wife, should have been giving to my broken, biased heart. This was worse than catching them in bed. This was an emotional intimacy that felt like a deeper betrayal. I got out of the car and I walked towards them, the gravel crunching under my feet. They both looked up, their eyes wide with shock when they saw me. Mark's face was pale and tear-streaked. Chloe's was filled with a pity that enraged me. "Sarah," Mark whispered, his voice hoarse. "Don't," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Don't you dare say my name." I looked from my husband's broken expression to my best friend's guilty one. "How long?" I asked, the words tasting like poison. "How long has this been going on behind my back?" "Sar, it's not what you think," Chloe started, standing up. "Not what I think." I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Oh, I think I know exactly what this is. The late nights, the secret meetings, the lies you must think I'm a complete idiot. I turned my full fury on Mark, and you crying in her arms. Was I not enough for you? Was our life, our future, not enough for you to be honest with me? Please just let us explain," Mark pleaded, trying to stand. But he seemed weak, unsteady. But I was too far gone, consumed by my pain and rage. "Explain what? That you've destroyed everything, that you've taken the two people I trusted most in this world, and you've turned them into strangers. There's nothing to explain." I took a final look at them, at the ruins of my life sitting on that park bench. "I hate you," I whispered, the words tearing from my soul. "I hate you both." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them there with my shattered heart. In that moment, I had never felt so utterly and completely alone. Everything I had believed in, everything I had built, was gone. All was lost. I drove home in a blind haze of tears. I walked into our house, a place that had always felt like a sanctuary, but now it just felt like a stage for a life that was a lie. I went into our bedroom and started pulling a suitcase from the closet. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. Every photo on the wall, every shared object, felt like an insult. I was throwing clothes into the bag with reckless abandon when I heard the front door open. I froze, expecting Mark, but it was Chloe's voice that called my name, soft and hesitant. "Go away, Chloe," I yelled, my voice cracking. A moment later, she appeared in the bedroom doorway. Her eyes were red and swollen, but her expression was determined. She was holding a large manila folder. "I'm not leaving until you listen to me," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "You can hate me for the rest of your life. You can hate Mark, but you're going to do it for the right reasons. You are going to listen to the truth." I saw the truth on that park bench. I shot back. "No," she said, stepping into the room. "You saw a man who is terrified and a friend who was trying to help him. You saw a situation you didn't understand, and you filled in the blanks with the worst possible story." She walked over and placed the folder on the bed. "Mark didn't want me to do this. He wanted to tell you himself, but he was scared. He's been so scared." I stared at the folder, my anger slowly being replaced by a flicker of confusion. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to hold on to my anger because anger was easy. It was a shield. The alternative was too terrifying to consider. Chloe saw the hesitation in my eyes. His late meetings weren't meetings, Sarah. They were doctor's appointments. My extra shifts were me going with him because he was too afraid to go alone. The coffee shop receipt you probably found, that was us, after his first consultation with the specialist, trying to figure out how he was going to tell his wife that his heart is failing. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back and sat on the edge of the bed. "What?" I whispered. I slowly opened the folder. Inside were medical documents, scans, test results, doctor's notes. I didn't understand all the terminology, but I saw the letterhead of the city's best cardiology center, and I saw the diagnosis, written in stark, black letters, arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy, a progressive disease of the heart muscle. The pieces of the puzzle, the ones I had so confidently arranged into a picture of infidelity, violently rearranged themselves into a portrait of terror and illness. The weight loss, the exhaustion, the secrecy. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Why? I whispered, looking up at Chloe, my eyes pleading for an answer that made sense. Why wouldn't he tell me? "Because he loves you," she said, her voice breaking. "Because we were just about to start trying for a baby. Because you had our whole life planned out. And he felt like he was a defective part that was going to ruin the whole machine. He didn't want to be a burden. He didn't want to see the look of fear in your eyes that he was seeing in his own every morning in the mirror. It was wrong. It was a stupid, noble, terrible decision. But he did it because he was trying to protect you. The main conflict, the one I thought was about betrayal, was never the real story. The real story was about love and fear and a misguided attempt to shield someone from pain. And the central question, what were they hiding from me? Finally had its devastating answer. They weren't hiding an affair. They were hiding a tragedy. At that moment, Mark walked in. He looked older, more fragile than he had just an hour before. He saw me with the folder, and his face crumpled. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, waiting for my verdict. The anger was gone, washed away by a tidal wave of guilt and shame. I had made his deepest fear, his most vulnerable moment, about me. While he was facing a terrifying diagnosis, I was accusing him of betrayal. I stood up and walked to him, closing the distance between us. I put my hand on his cheek, feeling the tremor beneath his skin. "You're an idiot," I said, my voice thick with tears. A tear rolled down his cheek. "I know." "You're my idiot," I said, and I pulled him into my arms, holding him as tightly as I could, as if I could physically hold his heart together. We're supposed to face things together. You don't get to do this alone. We stood there for a long time, the three of us in that room. The trio that had been shattered was now beginning to piece itself back together. not in the same perfect shape as before, but in a new form, held together by a painful, terrifying, and unconditional truth. In the weeks that followed, our lives were consumed by appointments, medications, and learning a new language, the language of cardiologists and prognoses. The future I had so meticulously planned was gone. The neat, orderly grid I had designed for our life had been wiped clean. But in its place, something new began to grow. I used to believe that strength was in control, in planning, in preparing for every contingency, in building a life so perfect that nothing could ever go wrong. I see now how naive that was. My obsession with control wasn't strength, it was a defense against fear. The moment I lost that control, the moment I saw my husband and my best friend on that bench, I defaulted to the worst possible conclusion because it was, in a strange way, a simple one. Betrayal is a story as old as time. It was easier to understand than the chaotic, terrifying randomness of illness. The real transformation for me wasn't just learning about Mark's condition. It was learning to let go of the idea of a perfect life and embrace the messy, unpredictable, and terrifyingly beautiful reality of the one we actually had. I learned that a true partnership isn't about protecting each other from pain, because you can't. Life is going to be painful. A true partnership is about promising to hold the other person's hand and walk through the pain together. Mark's journey is far from over. There are good days and bad days, but we're a team again, a real one. Chloe is by our side, not as a secret keeper, but as the family she has always been. The love I have for both of them has deepened, forged in the fire of this crisis and tempered by the hard-learned lesson of trust. I'm no longer the person who needs everything to be in its perfect place. I'm learning that, sometimes, the most important things in life are the ones that don't fit into any box at all. We are building something new now, not on a foundation of plans and schedules, but on a foundation of honesty, vulnerability, and the raw, unshakable strength that comes from facing the unknown, together. It makes me wonder about the things we do to protect the people we love. We often think that hiding a difficult truth is an act of kindness, a way to spare them from worry. But is it? Or does it just create a different kind of pain in the end? I'd love to hear what you think. Have you ever hidden something to protect someone, or been the one a secret was kept from? Let me know your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a like. It truly helps more people find our stories. And to make sure you don't miss our next story about the complex ties of family and relationships, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're so grateful to have you here.